All right, what's up, folks? Monday, January 1st, 2018, first day of the new year. Happy New Year. Rich Tassel with you, giving you our weekly NBA report. We took the week off last week. Start fresh with the new year. And as we head into it, looking at the Eastern Conference, still pretty much the same at the top. The Celtics have had to win 3 straight to get back to the top. They now hold the 3-game lead over the Toronto Raptors. The Celtics have played 6 more games than the Raptors, though. The Celtics have played a ton of games. I'm not sure why they have played so many games to this point. That was supposed to be the focus coming into this year. They've already played 40. All right, we're not even really that close to the All-Star break. The All-Star break doesn't come till after the Super Bowl, and they're going to be at what? Like, that's about a month and a half away. They got to be at least at nearing 55 games by that point, unless their schedule significantly slows down. So that is really something that I'm just a little curious by. The Toronto Raptors in second place, they have been playing very well. They had a big win streak at one point. They come in, they are plus 7.9, so just shy of 8 points in their differential, which is very impressive in that regard, really coming along. You look at the Boston Celtics, Kyrie Irving, they got the win last night against the Nets. He continues to put up points. You had a little injury problems with Jaylen Brown nursing a few injuries. Jason Tatum continues to come along. I'd like to see a bit more from Al Horford on the consistent side of things. But other than that, they're still playing very well, only giving up 98.5, but their points per game where they've given up has started to increase. They're just shy of 5 points. Of course, with the Toronto Raptors, on the other hand, it's been a lot of Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, as it always is. They got the win the other night. They're playing today against the Milwaukee Bucks. Got to keep an eye on that. But DeRozan continues to put up the points. Scored 25 the other night. Again, not a guy who shoots a lot of threes. Not really the analytics guy as you would like. Just looking at his last game, 2 for 4 from 3, but shot 10 of 18 from 2. Kyle Lowry, he's not shooting the ball particularly well, so I'd like to see more from him in that regard. Just shy of 16 points. He's really raised his assist numbers thus far this year, but he's shooting at only 42%, but just a little shy of 39 from 3. So that's very good in that regard. Again, with the Toronto Raptors, a lot comes down with the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of the other guys. Jonas Valanciunas, what can he bring to the table? What is, he's really right at his career average, a little lower in the rebounds, actually lower in everything. His career is about 11.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1 block. He's just over 11, just a little shy of 8, and a little shy of 1 thus far this season. So that's really what comes down to Nolan Powell. Those guys have got to develop. Cleveland continues to just do what they do. They've now lost 3 straight. They've been up and down. They're 24-12. Detroit, once again, really playing well. I shouldn't say really playing well. They're starting to get back in the swing of things. They've been up and down, but they have now, on only a 1-game win streak, that is, but out of their last, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 5-2, 6-2. So out of their last 8, they're 6-2. Got a nice win against the Spurs the other night. So that is certainly something that can really elevate this team moving forward. Anytime you beat a good team like the San Antonio Spurs, it's an impressive victory. Even though the Spurs, you never really know what you're going to get as far as who's going to be playing, who's not in that regard. I really liked Avery Bradley. I think that's been a nice addition. Once again, his numbers continue to just rise up. He's really right where he's been these last couple years, putting up 15 points. Of course, he's a very good defender. His shooting, 42%, so that's a little low, but he does shoot well from 3, 41.4. So that's the guy. Of course, you have the Tobias Harrises, though, of the world. Reggie Jackson is a guy. What type of point guard is he going to be? How high is he going to develop? He's just shy of 15 points, but only 5.5 assists. Got to be better than that. Those are the guys I really look at. Tobias Harris as well, a guy with a lot of talent, 18 points, but he's, where is Tobias Harris as far as just how much can he carry a team, for lack of a better word? He's a quality player. He can put up numbers, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure what you're going to get from this guy on a game-to-game basis. Washington, 21-16. That's another team that, when they got to start to find their groove. They're the last of the teams that are in the plus. Then you have the Milwaukee Bucks, 19-15. They had a tough play, or were the beneficiary of a tough call, that is, on a Giannis Antetokounmpo dunk. They're gonna look at that. I try not to, even with football now, that even though the NBA or the NFL season is ending, basketball, you can't even really assess anything with these calls. A lot of it has to do with technology, but as far as the actual game on the court, Giannis Antetokounmpo, this team is going to have to win more games, be higher up in the standings for him to really have a legitimate shot at MVP. But you look, 29 points, over 10 rebounds, his blocks 1.5. His assists 4.6. I thought they would be a little higher, but clearly his numbers are there. Just a guy who can do basically a lot of everything. It's really, though, it's a lot of him. You add a guy like a Jason Terry who's 40. He was there last year, though. Thon Maker, he's not really coming along. I think if any of those guys, raw guys like Antetokounmpo was, I'm not saying these guys can't do it, but that's going to be the biggest thing for the Milwaukee Bucks. Malcolm Brogdon is improving, so it's really, you're looking at those two guys, how far they can, carry them. Then where's the rest of it going to come from? Is it going to be a guy like Chris Middleton, who's putting over 20 points? Middleton, a guy like a Tobias Harris, who I think, you kind of look at it as, okay, yeah, we can put up these numbers, but at the end of the day, where they're going to fall. But the Milwaukee Bucks at 19 and 15, they have got to start rising up the ranks, but Antetokounmpo is dangerous. Miami, 19 and 17, give Eric Spoelstra a lot of credit. Indiana now starting to crash. They've lost 4 straight. They're 19 and 18. Oladipo, of course, having a very good year this year. He's putting up a lot of the numbers. The other guys I'm really looking at, though, with that team would be the Domantas Sabonis, a guy who also came over in that deal. 11 points, 8 rebounds, so pretty solid there. Again, if Oladipo puts up the points that I wasn't really expecting, and I don't think a lot of people would have expected, then you're going to be all right and comparable to Paul George. Whatever Sabonis gives you is gravy. This is only his second year. If he can be, a 12, 13 point guy, a guy who can at least, again, with these centers and the statistics, it's when do they get the points, when do they have them? Is it, can he get the tough buckets at those points? Does shoot over 50%, even from 3, though he's not attempting even 1 a game. He shoots 33%. That's good enough. His rebounding is solid. So those are the things you look at with this team as far as how far they can go, what they're building for the future. Oladipo was drafted to under 25. I'm really not even sure where that came from with Oladipo. He has the talent, of course. Could it be that he's back in Indiana? I don't know. Of course, he went to college there, but there's certainly something working in that regard that I'm a little surprised by, where Oladipo is playing that well. New York Knicks 18 and 18, Philadelphia 76ers 17 and 19. I'm expecting more from the 76ers this year. Chicago all of a sudden, but now you see those top 10, and then there's where the drop off comes. Chicago 13 and 23, Brooklyn 13 and 23. Figured Brooklyn would be a little better. Bottom really coming out on the Charlotte Hornets. They're 13 and 23. Orlando 12 and 25, and then the Atlanta Hawks there at 10 and 26. So you really have the top 10 and then everyone else in the Eastern Conference. Now moving to the West, Golden State and Houston continue to really spar it out. They're 2 games separating each other. Golden State 29 and 8, and then Houston 26 and 9. Then you have a team like the San Antonio Spurs, only 2 behind the Houston Rockets, but really it's the separation there with the top 2 in that regard between the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets. Now we'll start with Golden State. Kevin Durant, there's been some talk now, can he challenge LeBron James as the best player in the league? I don't know. I would still give it to LeBron at this point. I think you would look at a guy like Antetokounmpo with the numbers he's putting up. You look Kevin Durant, 25.9 points. So, I look at Durant's, numbers like the assist 5.3. That's actually really impressive. It's much higher than his career. The 7 rebounds. He's not like a guy who goes and gets you rebounds to me. He's a guy who's long and he can clean up a lot of the glass. But you look, he's shooting over 50% from the floor, just shy of 40 from the 3-point line at 39.5. And he's a little shy of 90% from the line. So he's looking at a potential 50, 40, 90 year playing very well. I'm not going to really get involved with that. To me, as far as the discussion between who could be better than the other, to me, when you're talking about the Golden State Warriors, it's really, come playoff time. Steph Curry, 26 points. You just look at the firepower on this team. When those top two guys are putting that up, and then you can turn to guys like Klay Thompson. You can also turn to guys like Draymond Green. How dangerous are they going to be? But Steph Curry, just shy of 27 points. He's shooting 48% from the floor. He's shooting over 40% from three, and he's shooting 93% from the line. So his shooting percentage, 48% is good. That's still tough to get that to 50, but he's certainly got an outside shot to be a guy who can go 50, 40, 90. But you have two guys potentially on the outside. You look at Draymond Green's numbers, though. He's only putting up 10 points. That just shows you how dangerous this team is. There's really just too much talent all the way around when a guy like a Draymond Green is only putting up 10 points per game as he's been doing this season. Then you have Klay Thompson. He's over 20 points. So, what do you do with a team like this? And that's when you transition into the Houston Rockets. How do you beat them? I know Cleveland got the victory that one year, I think, where they came back in the finals. But to me, I just don't see a case where this team is really going to lose. There's just too much firepower. You look at that, Draymond Green's putting up 10 points. And, of course, these teams are right there with the winning percentage with the Boston Celtics. The Celtics winning at 75. Again, they've played more games. Golden State, 78.4. Then the Houston Rockets were 26-9. They're a little shy of the 75 mark. They had, of course, the big loss to the Boston Celtics, where big as far as they blew a lot of points. They had lost 5 straight, and they're still 26-9, so they're starting to come on, but they had that big win streak in that regard. James Harden put up 40 points last night, 148 to 142. I hope you had the over in this game with the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll start actually with Chris Paul with the Houston Rockets. He's starting to come along. He was injured for most of the year. 17 points, just shy of 9 assists. I would expect his assist numbers would probably stay right where they are. You'd like to see them go up a little, but again, that's where you also have James Harden, who's playing a lot of points. Now let's see if Harden misses some time. Harden actually has more assists. Harden 32 points, 9 assists, and over 5 rebounds. Very good. Only 45% from the floor, 39 from three. Those numbers are good enough. Don't get me wrong, but that's a case where you'd like to see his shooting be a little bit better, at least from the floor. But he does take a lot of shots, and the 45% is not very bad. San Antonio, I got to give them credit. They continue to impress. Minnesota is living up. I had really two surprising teams, I guess. Philadelphia was probably a bit more surprising with what I had them coming into the year than Minnesota. I didn't expect Minnesota to be as solid as they've been. I figured, at least this early on, I figured at some point they would come on later in the year, but there's a lot of talent on this team. To me, I think Karl Anthony Towns can be one of the better players in this league. Of course, the additions of Jeff Teague, Karl Anthony Towns, 20 points, 11.5 rebounds. This season, you look at his career, 21.5 points, 11.5, and 1.5 blocks to 1.5, 1.6 this year to 1.5 for his career. So his numbers have basically been there. His points have come down a little bit, but you would expect that because you add a guy like Jimmy Butler, an all-around player, over 21 points this season. He's really elevated his game. Remember, for Jimmy Butler's career, and he's still a relatively young guy, he hasn't even averaged 20 points for his career, and he's had some big years in the meantime. Andrew Wiggins, of course. So again, you have a team where you have a lot of firepower and potential. This is a team that I think could give fits to a team like the Golden State Warriors. I don't think they're good enough, but of course you have a guy who can pound the ball inside. Now, Andrew Wiggins' points per game are down. He's down to 17.6. As you would expect, though, I'd like to see him still kind of take the reins more. He's only shooting 43% and just above the 33% mark from three, so those numbers have got to be better. Guy like Jeff Teague as well, I think a nice addition. He's really elevated his assist level. Of course, he's playing with a lot of talent. He's also elevated his points from where they've been for his career, but he's just shy of 7.5 points, or 7.5 assists, that is, and you have a lot more talent on this team. So, not that he didn't necessarily have talent in Atlanta, but just not as much as he has here, where you got guys who can put the ball in the basket. So, of course, his assist numbers are going to continue to go up. Oklahoma City now starting to come on. They figured things out, put Carmelo Anthony off the ball. That's important. They still got to continue to progress, however, and continue to win some games and really climb up the standings for me. Russell Westbrook continues to put up big-time numbers, of course. Paul George is also playing very well. They lost the game to the Bucks the other night, though. So, again, as we discussed most of the season with the Oklahoma City Thunder when they were struggling, you had the good in the plus minus differential. Russell Westbrook, again, still the outside shot at putting up a triple-double again for the season. He's just shy of 25 points at 10 rebounds or at 10 assists and 9.6 rebounds. That's going to be tough to get those rebounds up. He's still got a lot of games to play. Let's see if they start winning more where he can go. But now you have Carmelo Anthony. Again, they've taken him off the ball a little bit. 17.5 points. That's good. You got Russell Westbrook who's distributing. They'll figure it out. Carmelo Anthony's shooting, though, at only 41%, but still 36% from three. I mean, really, we're at the point it really doesn't even matter anymore what you shoot from the floor necessarily, as long as you're shooting well from three. That's really all that people care about these days. And then you have Paul George at 20 points. So they're starting to get it together. That defense has been solid, as we've said. Again, they've still managed to be in the plus minus good in their plus minus. They're at 3 points. Their defense is only giving up just over 100 points per game. San Antonio and Boston are the only teams under 100 points per game. You got to look at guys like Steven Adams, though, continue to come along, and it's really those pieces that go with it as far as spreading out the offense, because if you have stagnated offensive play with guys like Steven Adams or Jeremy Lamb or whoever else is on the court at that time, that's where things can really start to give you problems. Denver 19-7, trying to stay with it. Portland is 19-17, that is for Denver. Portland 18-17. Again, Portland, you got Lillard, you got McCollum, but it's really what you're going to be. They're going to be a team that's around 45 wins for most of the time those guys are together, because guys like Evan Turner haven't stepped up. Myers Leonard, who was a high pick, you're going to need those guys to really come along. Then you have the New Orleans Pelicans at 18-18. I'd like to see if this team can start to make moves. I don't expect, at 36 games where these teams are, I'd expect New Orleans is going to be right around 500. I don't expect them to really move up. Anthony Davis, of course, putting up big numbers, just shy of 26 points. 10 rebounds. DeMarcus Cousins, it's not that really those guys aren't doing. You got two big men who are both putting up over 25 points and over 10 rebounds per game. You say, how do you lose? That just shows where the league is going. DeMarcus Cousins, 26 points, 12.5 rebounds. Again, to me, the big issue with them is Rajon Rondo. He's playing pretty well. His points don't really matter. His assists are pretty low. They're right at his career average, but he didn't get off to those really hot starts. Remember, there were a couple years there in Boston. He was putting up close to 11.5 assists per game. So he's got to figure out how to get that team going. You got guys like Tony Allen, who's a good defender. I don't think that's going to mix well. You got to get some more shooting. Will they make an addition? Jrue Holiday is kind of like a point guard in the Rajon Rondo mode. You've got to find some shooting. If they make a move, I think that might spread the floor a bit, and you could see that team maybe break the analytics, but it's got to happen like that. But in the meantime, you're looking at a team that's around 500. The Clippers, 16-19. Utah, 16-21. Clippers playing better than I would have expected. Phoenix, 14-24. Again, these teams, you look, the Clippers and the Jazz are still less than a point below or in the minus for their differential. Then you go to Phoenix, who's minus 6.5. Dallas, 13-25. Sacramento, 12-24. Memphis, 12-25. And then the Los Angeles Lakers, who have now lost 6 straight, are in last place. I'm very surprised by that. There's simply too much young talent on that team. You get Luke Walton. I don't know. Will Magic Johnson make a move? Will Magic Johnson maybe coach his team at some point? Because they are really struggling at this point. I'm very surprised. This team, to me, I don't think was as bad as they looked on paper the last couple years, because this is a team that was clearly trying to lose, was not or tanking, was not necessarily trying to get the wins. Lonzo Ball, his numbers aren't too bad: 10 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. So he's getting the job done. I don't know. Brandon Ingram, a guy who I think is much more talented than maybe he appears, but he's putting up his numbers. When you watch these guys play, they look one way, but I think there's more talent there. I don't know if Luke Walton can't figure it out. Ingram over 16 points. Julius Randle, a guy who I like. He's not really putting up the big numbers either. This could be a case where you drafted just too many young pieces, and now, what do you do with them? Larry Nance, a guy who can certainly play. Now, he wasn't one of those high draft picks, but his numbers aren't great. But you add all these guys, Lonzo Ball, then you trade D'Angelo Russell. So I don't know what the Lakers' deal is, but we've got to see, because at some point this team has really got to start playing better. Again, I thought they were tanking a bit, so the numbers weren't really as reflective of how bad they are. But at this point, maybe they were just terrible. I don't know what the deal is with the Lakers. All right, power rankings. Got to give the Golden State Warriors number 1 at 29-8. You look at their differential, just a little south of 10 points. Boston Celtics 30-10, number 2. Houston Rockets, number 3. We'll give it to them, even though they had lost 5 straight. Then go with Toronto at 24-10, and then number 5. Got to keep it with the San Antonio Spurs at 25-12. All right. Got the NFL playoffs coming up, so come the weekend, we'll definitely give you those. Maybe talk about the coaches being fired today, but really starting to transition now as we hit the new year and the NFL season. The regular season just ended, transitioning into the NBA, so we'll probably do more stuff with the NBA as well. Be sure to stay tuned for that, and remember, we appreciate all subscriptions. Thank you.